So, have you ever experienced that absolutely painful, sinking feeling of frustration? You know exactly the one I'm talking about. It's when a well intentioned, super competent leader somehow just completely fails to connect with their people. I mean, they've got the right strategy, they put in the hours, and yet the team just quietly disengages. Why on earth does that happen? Seriously, why do good leaders lose their teams? Well, Jay Martin hit the nail right on the head. Listen to this quote. Intent lives inside your head. Impact lives inside someone else, right? Just let that sink in for a second. That is the core problem right there. There's this incredibly dangerous, totally invisible gap between what a leader actually means to say and what is really heard and felt by the team. Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to guide you through this fascinating material today. We're going to unpack Jay Martin's absolutely groundbreaking concept of directional communication. We're going to figure out how to master the language of leadership and, honestly, most importantly, how you can adapt your style to absolutely any organizational setting without, losing who you actually are. Okay, let's dive into this framework. We've got 6 steps today. The intent versus impact gap, communicating downward, upward, and across, reading the room, and finally, adaptation without losing yourself. All right, starting with section 1, the intent versus impact gap. So here's the thing, communication is never just static, right? And most leadership breakdowns actually happen in this exact invisible space. Let's define this gap. It's the space where a leader prioritizes their own internal explanation over the team's lived emotional experience. Picture this, a leader rushes through a doorway, quickly drops some quote-unquote efficient feedback on an employee just to save time. Now, the leader's intent? Totally helpful and fast, but the employee's nervous system? It instantly receives that clipped, rushed tone as a massive threat. And just like that, the gap widens, and the leader doesn't even notice. And this perfectly illustrates the exact difference between the two. Look, intent is private. It's what you carry around to explain your actions and kind of defend yourself. But impact? Impact is entirely public. It's literally what others have to live with every single day. It shapes the entire culture and accumulates over time. When you defend your intent while completely ignoring your impact, you're basically training your teams to quietly check out. You're sending a loud and clear message, hey, my explanation matters way more than your experience. Moving right along to section 2, communicating downward, building safety. Now, when you're speaking downward to your team, it isn't about flexing your authority at all. It's actually about carrying the really heavy responsibility of psychological safety. As the source so brilliantly puts it, psychological safety is not a buzzword, it is an operational advantage. Safety definitely doesn't mean drum circles and holding hands, okay? It means bad news delivered early is highly valued. It means silence is never weaponized against the team. It literally means your people feel secure enough to give you their absolute best thinking. So when communicating downward, you're constantly making a choice. Are you generating clarity or are you just demanding compliance? On the surface, yeah, they might look kind of similar, but they are radically different beasts. True clarity builds this deep, incredible ownership and alignment. Mere compliance, on the other hand, it just looks like agreement. Underneath, it's actually just a reaction driven entirely by fear and self-preservation. To make absolutely sure you're building clarity and safety, you really need a mental model. So before you step into any difficult one-on-one or a tense team review, run through these 4 questions. Are expectations crystal clear? Am I choosing truth over comfort? Are questions actually welcomed and safe to ask? And finally, am I measuring my impact or just my intent? If you run through this quick checklist before you speak, you literally eliminate so much unnecessary fear. All right, section 3, communicating upward, earning credibility. Let's move our compass upward, shall we? Speaking to senior executives requires a completely different language, one that's focused entirely on earning credibility. The quote here is spot on. Upward communication is not about agreement. It is about credibility. Look, executives live at this crazy high altitude of strategy and tight timelines. They really do not need an emotional download from you. What they desperately need are leaders who can translate the chaos of the front line into a clean, highly actionable signal. Now, what's really interesting here is the sharp, critical contrast between venting and advocacy. Most leaders honestly think they're advocating when they speak to the boss, but in reality, they're actually just venting. Venting basically transfers emotion without taking any responsibility, and it just hyper-focuses on what's wrong. True advocacy, however, is a total game changer. It translates reality with a clear purpose and focuses on paths forward. It pairs real problems with clear trade-offs and options. So when you actually need to disagree upward, the sequence of your words is literally everything. Step 1, establish shared purpose. Step 2, surface the concern. Step 3, explore the risk. Presenting the step-by-step playbook is like magic. Why? Because the sequence doesn't change the hard truth of what you're saying, but it radically changes how that truth is received by a senior executive who's already under immense pressure. And let's be real, probably 5 minutes late for their next meeting. Next up, Section 4, Communicating Across, Protecting Culture. Okay, peer communication is arguably the single most dangerous direction you can face. Why? Because there are absolutely no titles to lean on. There's no built-in authority, and man, this is exactly where ego flares the fastest. Because, as it says here, culture travels sideways first. Just think about that for a second. Unresolved sideways tension in casual Slack threads or those polite but kind of passive-aggressive hallway chats, they will silently and completely fracture a high-performing culture. It is always the leaks in peer trust that ultimately sink the organizational ship. To maintain that vital sideways trust, you've got to build alignment toward a goal rather than forming political alliances against other teams. You absolutely have to address the right person directly. You've got to avoid the sheer toxicity of triangulation, where you go and complain to a third party instead of the person involved. And honestly, the most immense cultural power you possess, it's speaking with total respect about your peers when they aren't even in the room. Disagree cleanly in the room or just don't do it at all. Moving to Section 5, Reading the Room's Variables. So we're transitioning from the external directions of communication to your own internal state as a leader. Because here's the honest truth, the room's nervous system is reading you way before you even open your mouth to speak. Consider this difference between performance and presence. The performing leader is nervously managing perception, they're forcing this polished optimism, and they're just rushing to fix things. But the leader with genuine presence, they're managing themselves. They are grounded. They are holding space for the tension in the room without trying to force a quick artificial fix. And trust me, your team can absolutely feel the difference. So the really crucial point here is that you must scan the room for these 3 variables before uttering a single word. First, what is the emotional climate? Second, what's the power distribution? Like, who feels safe right now and who feels totally exposed? And third, what is the exact purpose of the moment? Is this a free-flowing brainstorming room or is it a strict correction room? Assessing these 3 things ensures your tone perfectly matches the moment. And finally, Section 6, Adaptation without losing yourself. Whenever we talk about changing your style for different rooms, this really common fear pops up. Wait, doesn't adapting make me a fake, inconsistent leader? The answer is a firm, absolute no. Consistency actually means your core values stay totally fixed while your delivery adapts. True leadership fluency is keeping your core principles completely unshakable, while smoothly adjusting your volume, your pacing, and your tone to suit exactly what that specific audience needs to hear. To help you actually pull this off, use this rapid 3-layer pre-speaking filter. It literally takes seconds. 1, is this about my ego or the actual impact? 2, what specific decision is needed right now from this room? And 3, can I say this with calm conviction? Because if you can't say it calmly, you just aren't ready. This filter is fantastic because it perfectly separates your own identity from the feedback you're giving or receiving. I want to leave you with this one final provocative thought. If someone described your leadership in 3 completely different rooms, let's say a really tense senior executive meeting, a tough one-on-one with a struggling employee, and a superheated peer debate, what exactly would they say? Would they see the exact same core principles delivered with incredible, adaptable fluency? Really take a moment to reflect on how you adapt, because your language literally shapes their reality. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning out there.